I'm Peter Marks, theater critic of The Washington Post.
And I'm Elizabeth Vincentelli, and I write for The New York Times. It's time for another edition of Marks and Vincentelli, which is your clearinghouse for theater news and reviews and interviews and crazy opinions about tap dancing. So, season is revving up. Peter, are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. The invitations to review are coming fast and furious. As most of our listeners know, I think, this is how it works. For a given production, we are sent an email from the show's publicist listing the dates of the critics' previews, several performances that occur a few days before the official opening night. So we have our choice of some different dates.
Yeah, that's how the biz works. And one of those shows is by today's guest. We are so psyched to have Jocelyn Bioh with us. Jocelyn, I think it's fair to say that she started really her career as an actor, and she was in the original cast of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime on Broadway.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she was in the original cast of A Nocturne at Soho Rep, which to this day is one of my favorite productions of the past 15 years. But she is really known now as a playwright. And her new one, it's kind of another in a series of comedies that are built around her West African heritage. And this one is called Jaja's African Hair Braiding. And it's her Broadway debut, which is, I'm just so happy just saying that. So the show is currently in previews. It opens October 3rd. At Manhattan Theater Club's Samuel J. Friedman Theater. I wish they had called it The Golden or something simple that I can pronounce. But no.
It's
not at the booth. It's not at the Golden. It's at the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I think we should call it the Samuel.
The Sam. Samuel, that is too
they
long
probably
for
say,
me.
"Oh, it's at the Friedman." I think it's at the Samuel.
It's at the Sam.
But anyway, it's nice to see Jocelyn making a splash on Broadway. She really is now, I think, one of the theater's funniest playwrights.
Agreed.
You have to say, after several hit comedies. Her previous ones, staged off-Broadway and also in regional theaters across the country, are what you might call delightfully piquant slices of West African life. The one that sort of brought her to attention, I think it was at MTC. It was called Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girls play. And in it, she lampoons beauty queen culture, which is an international phenomenon. And it's interesting how many variations on it have been taken up. It's it becomes a spoof on really Western values, I think. And it's told through the story of a contest, a very vituperative contest at a girls' academy in Ghana. Then she did also, I believe at MCC.
Yeah,
Not
MCC.
MCC, sorry. Then she did Nollywood Dreams. And her target then was the film industry in Nigeria. Again, a kind of, a distillation of how the West has infiltrated African culture and the ways in which it's been made, made over in that image. She's even adapted Shakespeare for the public theater, a version of Merry Wives of Windsor, set in a block of shops in Harlem that are operated by West African immigrants, was done a couple of summers ago.
Yeah, and not only that, but actually for our listeners who missed that last show, it was captured by PBS's Great Performances, so you can stream it if you want to see it on the PBS platform. So that's kind of great.
This is why we're so pleased to welcome Jocelyn to our podcast. So Jocelyn, it is so much fun to have this conversation with you and to meet you after having admired so much of your work and written about it for both Elizabeth and I. I think it's a pleasure. Let me ask you first of all, Jocelyn, where and how did this all begin for you? How did you come to make theater your platform?
Wow. Okay. Big question.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really thrilled to be on here with you all. Yeah, theater started out. I would say it was kind of a progression. I started out as a dancer when I was younger.
Really?
Yes, I really thought that was going to be my trajectory. I thought I was just going to dance for the rest of my life, and then
Huh.
after that, become a choreographer, and that would be what I did.
Interesting.
And so dance kind of led to musical theater. Musical theater led to me doing plays. And then eventually in college, I kind of fell into playwriting accidentally. I just took it as a course to compensate for the
Wow.
credits I wasn't getting as an actor. And my professor there told me that she thought I had a really good ear for dialogue and that I should maybe think about writing in the future, and that kind of unlocked something for me. And so when I applied to graduate school, I actually applied to some as a playwright and some as an actor because I was
Hmm.
still actually that unsure.
Hmm.
And ultimately, when I got into Columbia's playwriting program, I was like, I'll roll the dice. I feel like I can figure out this acting thing professionally once I, book a show or something like that. But if I really want to know how to structurally make really good work as a playwright, I think I should devote some education to that. And so I went to Columbia's playwriting program, but it was totally like I tripped and fell into each thing. It's very odd how it all happened.
Can we
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your acting? Because I remember very vividly, like, because you were in that first production of An Octoroon, right? At Soho Rep.
Yes. Yes.
That is one of my favorite shows ever, and that particular production.
Me
And what
too.
was it
Yeah.
like? I mean, I really felt like it really like completely appended a lot of things that I love about theater in a good way. What was it like to be in it
Sure.
as a performer, but also you must have had your like playwriting brain also like absorbing from that.
I think in that particular with that particular show, because I had been working on it and
Mm.
developing it with Brandon for a while, and he, when I my first professional show as an actress was actually Brandon's first professional play as a playwright,
Wow.
Neighbors at the Public. And so I feel like we that unlocked this like obviously beautiful friendship and artistic relationship that we both still have with each other to this day. But I feel like the an Octoroon really helped me figure out who I was as a writer just from learning from Brandon. I
Hmm.
feel like he was so and is because he's still writing, of course, but he's so brave with rewrites, and he's not afraid to throw everything out and start over. And I've never seen that before. I felt like that was like kind of groundbreaking. What I always felt like playwrights usually were like first draft's the draft, and that's the end
Mm.
of that. And being able to work on new plays with him three
Hmm.
times now,
Hmm.
he's really unapologetic about his process, and I feel like with an Octoroon, that was truly when I was starting to feel very confident and brave in who my voice
Mm.
was as a writer.
Hmm.
'Cause I'll tell you right now, the stuff I was writing in grad school was garbage. You will never see any of that. It is like locked away in a folder called taxes. It's like we'll never see it.
That's
It was
hilarious.
it was garbage. It was garbage, and and it's because I was trying to do something else with my voice. I wasn't just
Mm.
naturally, succumbing to where my voice lived as a comedic
Mm.
writer. I think I thought theater meant drama,
Hmm.
in sync dramas, Tennessee Williams, all the people that I really loved. I love Harold. I love Pinter's Betrayal. It's one of my favorite plays. I'm like, that's what I
Hmm.
should be writing,
Got it.
and
Yeah.
that's just not where my voice
Mm.
lives. So
Hmm.
when I saw and worked with someone like Brandon who was so free in his voice, I feel like it gave me the confidence to do the
Mm.
same. But it took time. It really took time. So yeah, that process actually really did inform a lot about who I am as a writer, a lot about what people now know me as when it comes to my writing.
How cool that the two of you are both debuting on Broadway.
I know.
He's doing Appropriate,
Yes,
which is
he's
so
doing.
cool.
I'm so excited for him. I mean, I love that play. I know all of his plays, and I love that play.
Mm.
And I think not being, no pun intended, inappropriate play for him to be debuting on Broadway. Because of how brave and audacious it is. And similarly, I feel like Jaja's is a play that feels very, it's still me, of course. It's still very much who I am, my center of gravity in terms of like comedic stories that center Black and African people. However, it's a really different vibe and tone, I think, to who I am as a writer. And it should be, because I'm a different writer than I was 10 years ago. So, yeah, it feels exciting. I mean, I'm happy that we're on Broadway together. It should be fun.
Can we just backtrack? You had mentioned that you had found your comedic voice, and I love comedies. And I think it's a genre. Well, I don't know if it's even a genre, but like maybe like a style or an approach, maybe, or a worldview.
Yeah.
That is often not taken as seriously. Like just even if you look at awards, let's take, I mean, we all know they don't mean everything, but it's still a indicative of industry, and your peers. And it's kind of hard sometimes to be acknowledged fully. And I'm like, are you serious? It's so hard to write a comedy. But like, when did you realize that you were good at it?
I think, well, look, I'm still deciding whether I'm good at it.
Okay, well,
or
we're
not.
going to tell you that you're really good at it. Okay, so, all right.
Thank you. Every first preview, I'm like, let's hope they laugh, I think it really sunk in maybe a few, like, it was maybe a few years after I got out of grad school, when I was starting to experiment with some of like my early plays that I was willing to share with people, as you know, because the other ones I wasn't. And I wrote a play that I thought was pretty dramatic. And when we had a reading of it, everyone was laughing after the first page. And I was like, right, dark comedy then. So I think I knew that oh, well, where I just naturally live, where my ear kind of goes to is a place that's rooted in truth. And I think that truth is really what unlocks the comedy. We all tell, I feel like all of us have funny stories to share about our parents or cousins, a partner, best friends. And maybe in the moment we were not laughing at what that story was, but in hindsight, we as we reflect on it, we're laughing at what they said or how they did something, and it's all because in that moment it was truth, and it's only later or upon reflecting on it that we realize it's comedy. And I feel like that's kind of my approach a little bit, is that I'm not really trying to make people laugh, really. It's just that these people are so doubled down in the truth of who they are, the characters, that we can't help but recognize it immediately and laugh at that truth. And I feel like when I edit myself when I know I'm doing too much. Like I can hear when I'm adding too many things to try to make it funny. And that's literally where most of my rewrites then come in, where I'm like, cut this, cut that. Cause I just got out of control, and it's about really being truthful to who these people are.
Yeah, one of the great things about your plays, Jocelyn, is I think the jaundiced eye that you bring to it. You give us characters that are funny, and you step back from them. You let us see both their hypocrisies and their fragilities. I think you go both ways with it, and they're full-bodied human beings for all their flaws and all their delightful conflicts that all comes across. I'm wondering if I thought maybe when I saw the name of your new play, the title of your new play, having seen your Merry Wives in the park, if somehow, which was set on a block in Harlem among West African shop owners from Senegal and other countries.
Yeah.
If that was did that inspire Jaja's? It's not, or is this a completely different path you took with this play?
Yeah, I feel like Jaja's kind of informed Merry Wives.
Interesting.
If I really think about it, I mean, Jaja's is, even though it's obviously a new play and it's only just now premiering, I wrote the initial draft in 2019.
Got it.
And obviously months later, I wrote it in early 2019, and then later on in the year, we all know what started popping off. By the time we got into 2020, things were crazy. And so the idea about Merry Wives didn't even come to me until we were well into the pandemic. So I famously had to adapt that Merry Wives when everything seemed like it was gonna come to be, and that the park was gonna come back that summer of 21. I only had maybe 3 months to write that adaptation.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so I had this, because I had been working on Jajas over the course of the pandemic, and when we were in deep lockdown, um, I thought, oh, well, if we're going to set Merry Wives in Harlem, it might be fun to just have like one little scene, in a braiding shop in a
Got
way
it.
that, with the two wives where they kind of concoct the plan rather than putting them in a, beauty salon or, someplace where they could talk. And we thought about all these different places, a nail salon, maybe they were getting, a pedicure or something like that. Like, if it's Harlem, they might be in a braiding shop.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so I just so we threw that in, and only few people knew that was kind of like my quiet precursor to what would eventually be announced as my world premiere of Jaja's. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, one of the things, I mean, you just mentioned, oh, okay, well, if you're in Harlem, you might go to this place and not that place. Well, one of the things that's amazing is that I think last year, Schoolgirls was one of the most produced plays in the country. So that means that it's being produced in places where maybe the level of familiarity with the things you're talking about, maybe I'm going to generously assume that New York audiences are maybe a little bit more familiar, but that might not even be true. But so have you been to like talkbacks? Have you visited some of the production? Like what kind of feedback do you hear when that play is done in an area that might be a very different demographic? Because I just think it's fantastic because people still laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've seen quite a few of the productions, not all of the ones that have been done, and I feel really blessed that that play has such legs. I could never have guessed it. Never ever ever have guessed that would happen. I have two big takeaways though. I feel like with that play, one is that the cast is always so happy to be in a play with a bunch of other, Black women, and to be in community with each other and to be in a comedy. I always hear, that they have never been in that kind of play before. Most times that they're in something where there is a lot of like suffering or that kind of singular narrative that is, usually put on Black stories. And so that it's very rare for them to have that kind of like comedic, loving, community experience with other Black women. So I never take that for granted. And I'm grateful that I'm able to have written a play that provides that kind of experience for people. And then the other thing I always hear is people who didn't realize their own implicit biases about colorism, depending on whatever, country they're from or background or even whatever state the play has been performed in, especially if it's at a theater with a predominantly, white audience, or it's in a area that's predominantly white, that they are being introduced to the idea of colorism and also realize that they have participated in that kind of ism in their life in some way or another. And it can be anything. I've had, Indian women who've come up to me talking about bleaching cream and how that's been a factor in their lives or in their families' lives, or, Asian women who have come up to me and talked about the eye surgery that they, maybe were forced into having, that kind of like push into like a Western, standard of beauty, has been really interesting. Or even Jewish women. I've had a lot of Jewish women, yes, who have talked to me about like, the discrimination they felt about being other within their community. Maybe they were the only Jewish family in that area, or they maybe had a more olive tone than other, people in their community or what have you. It's really fascinating. Like, and I think the more specific the play got, or at least when I was working on it, the more it kind of unlocked this weird, interesting universality. And I hear that, I hear both of those things quite often, and I'm always amazed every time.
That's so interesting. I found, one of the things I found so delicious about both the African Mean Girls play and Nollywood Dreams is the way in which you showed us how Western values and in one case in beauty pageants, in the other the film industry,
Yeah.
had been adopted. I don't even know if that's the right word, or reinterpreted by a culture that had other values and had to reconcile itself to what was being imposed on it, and what was considered a value of success in other parts of the world that suddenly had to be accepted by people who might have some problems with those definitions and terms. And I wondered if is that an accident that those two plays both had that going on?
No, not at all. Not an accident. I mean, I'm first generation Ghanaian. Both of my parents immigrated from Ghana in the late 60s. And, I was born and raised here in New York. And so I
Oh,
feel like I have a very unique purview of the world, in which I walk through the world. I walk through, these streets as a Black woman. Nobody knows anything about like my, deeper cultural, background or anything like that. I experienced the world in America as a Black woman in America. And at the same time, I also have the perspective of my parents who came to America in search of this like American dream, whatever that was for them, and encountered the American reality in all honesty, which I think is like the juxtaposition to the dream. It's really the reality and not the nightmare. Um, and so I feel like I carry both of those things, with me as I walk through the world and the way I see the world. And so I have an understanding of, what America and Western ideology is like, and what people aspire to have. And at the same time, this kind of like doubling down of loving the culture, that I come from. And I just feel like, for a long time, there's just been a really odd singular narrative of like African stories, and I know we all know that, but I really wanted to add to the conversation of how the diaspora is reflected, and want people to know that there is way more in common, that we have way more in common than we are different. And I know it maybe sounds a little cheesy, but it's really true. There are everyday Africans living their lives, going to work, having dreams, while the country may be in turmoil, in the same way that we are sitting here having a lovely conversation about theater and what
right,
have
right,
you,
right.
while America is literally on fire, And so I being able to put those kinds of things into my work feels really, really important. And it's also just a great connector, I'm making work that is about African people, yes, but it's for American audiences. And so we
Right.
need to make sure we're always having that kind of connection. Otherwise, you're othering people, and then it just feels like there's no way that they can empathize in any way. And that's, yeah, that's bad if that happens.
What's
So.
your personal connection with Ghana? For instance, have you like visited family there? Like, is that yeah?
Oh yes, oh yes. I feel like when I was younger, I affiliated Ghana as like hot, boring, visiting aunts and uncles that I barely have a relationship with, and them commenting on my funny American accent and things like that, and and my very poor, dialect work when I'm speaking my family's native tongue, which is called Twi, and I don't speak it very well. So I just feel like that was Ghana for me for many, many years. And then like later on in life, like especially in my like late 20s, 30s, I was like, let me go to Ghana and experience Ghana as an adult on my own, not in a trip that is like organized by my mom and or aunties. Let me go with like my friends and visit my cousins and go out.
Right.
And now my experience of Ghana is completely different. It's like now as an adult, I really like love being there. I love when I can be there for a few weeks at a time. The culture, the connectedness, the food, the parties, so much partying. Like you got to really prep yourself when you go there. Just like pack Gatorade because you'll need it. Um, and so there's like a real love and understanding that I have as an adult for Ghana that I didn't have, or appreciation I didn't have when I was younger. So I have a really different relationship with it now, which is why I think I can write this kind of more loving portrayal of the country and of the continent in general in my work. Because maybe 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case, but
Right.
I wasn't really writing 20 years ago.
Right.
So.
When I was very young, one of the first biographies I ever read, you're reminding me, Jocelyn, was of Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah. The
Who was
first
like,
president of Ghana.
I
Yeah.
know. And I remember being like, it was so revelatory to me to read his story. And it's, you're reminding me that was why sort of Ghana was always this kind of, this place I was always attracted to. And it also made me understand that, that this country tends to lump Africans into this like general category when there are like 60 countries or something in Africa, each one of them having their own language and culture that
Many
we
languages.
don't necessarily, we don't distinguish in this country.
No. And I think, right now I feel like in particular Ghana's really having a moment because in the last few years, they've done a real big push for tourism. And, they had like a few years ago, they had this thing called the Year of the Return, which was like marking 400 years from when the last slave ship, left the Ghanaian ports. And so they were essentially inviting anyone who was of any African lineage, so any Black person can come back to Ghana and experience, their homeland in a way that was, welcoming and loving and, what have you. And of course, it was just like lots of parties and lots of parades and events and things like that. But it really, it was really beautiful to watch people really kind of like go back to Ghana, experience Africa, understand the different countries that exist on the continent and the difference in culture. I feel like that's like important for people to know because in the same way that I think it's in our American language that like Black people are not a monolith, like neither are African people,
Right.
As well.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's an important thing to distinguish. So, it's nice. It's nice to see Ghana getting their like due. And I would never have imagined it. Like Beyonce shot a music video in Ghana. Like,
That's
what?
it. That's
that
it.
right?
That's
Oh,
like
wow.
maximum.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like
That's all you need.
Exactly. It's like, my much younger self, who people didn't even understand where Ghana was, like she could never have imagined something like that. So it's really not. I mean, I couldn't have imagined that I would be a working playwright and have a play on Broadway. It's still very surreal. So
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Can I backtrack a little bit to your writing comedy because I think I'm kind of obsessed with that because I love comedy and I love the mechanics of it and I love how it just when it works it's so much harder than drama. But I was wondering if you saw that movie that Rada Blank did, the 40-year-old version.
Oh yes, Rod is a good friend.
Oh, okay. Well, because I was wondering, because I feel like it deals with some of the peripheral issues. Like in the movie, the character that she plays keeps running into this like white theater people who are like, you kind of need to be your play needs a little bit more drama, needs a little bit more trauma. It's not like, which they're not going to say to a white playwright, but she keeps getting like, it's kind of not black enough. Is that like,
Yeah.
did that resonate with you in your decision to do comedy? Because there's these expectations that are so warped in a way. And again, it's not to like plays that deal with a different topic in a different way. But I think the baggage and the expectations are very different, because it's like, you kind of need to address some,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like early on in my career as a playwright, when I was really trying desperately to get produced, that was kind of the the that was kind of the red light I kept running into every time I was like trying to drive. Was some sort of artistic director or some sort of literary manager, who was like, "Oh, I love this play. I love Nollywood Dreams, but, I don't understand why everyone in your play is so happy when all I read about, in about Nigeria is Boko Haram." That's actually like a direct quote.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it's been years now since that happened, and it still stuns me to this day, because it just was like, and I said in the moment, like, wow, I think that speaks so much more to your ignorance than mine.
Wow, nice.
Of course.
That was a good net point there.
Yeah, like that is really the only thing you believe, to be about. But that's also part of the issue, even like I would say and I was watching, oh my God, terrible show. This is now outing me as like the trash reality TV that I watch. But I was watching this episode of like 90 Day Fiance.
Oh,
and
yes.
and one of the gentlemen he was in a relationship with an American woman, and the American woman came to, I think, Nigeria to meet his family, and his mother said in her native tongue, like, well, I'm really worried about you going to America, because the only thing I know about America is that they shoot black men. And I was like, wow. This is like, these are you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a danger in like one narrative about any sort of country, being a part of the only thing you know about them. Like, there's a real danger in that. Obviously, that is a issue in America, but that is not all of America. And that was like that was the one thing that this mother, was so concerned about her son, not that he's on this crazy show with this woman and, potentially participating.
Right.
Like she had this like really deep concern, about his safety here, and yeah, of course I understand why, but like, of course, that's not the only thing that happens to any man in America, much less black men. So there's a danger in that kind of thing. And so I did experience a lot of that early on. And so it was a long road to getting produced. And, there's even a fun kind of like fact about Schoolgirls, even that the only reason why that subtitle of the play, which is now what people know most, that subtitle, the African Mean Girls play.
Right.
I literally added that subtitle when I was sending that play around, because I wanted to immediately contextualize the play from the title.
I always wondered about that.
It wasn't.
I always wondered about that.
Yeah, to me, the play is called Schoolgirls. It's the play
Interesting.
Schoolgirls, and like, it's only when I sent that and I added that, it was so last minute. I said, wait to my agent, before you send it, here, let me rewrite this. And it was so quick. It was like it happened in a minute.
Wow.
And like, I feel like it was a smart decision for me, because like it did immediately contextualize the play and then unlocked something, that people felt like they could connect to. And that's why that play is always going to be very important, because it was me having a clear understanding of like how deep the narrative about Africa and African stories was, that like that it couldn't even pierce, my plays couldn't even pierce through it because it was it was like really dry old cement, and I was trying to break through it.
Wow.
And that play was that play I feel like is the one that kind of pierced through, and now nobody questions it. I'm sitting here having a conversation with you about my comedy and like my comedic voice and blah blah blah, and now no one questions it at all. But
Fascinating.
when I tell you that my everything about my life changed, I can tell you that the day before Schoolgirls opened was one thing, and the day after Schoolgirls opened was another.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Can you elaborate a little bit, like in terms of the reactions you got?
Meaning that I never had to explain or quantify or qualify
Wow.
my plays, my voice, or the people in them, or why I use comedy to tell those stories. I never had to explain that again.
That's so great.
Well, that's awesome.
And
You know what? I'm also taken by what you're talking about, Jocelyn, is I thought when you said, you discovered, playwriting through a course in college, it really, the narrative that's being developed in this country is, MFAs, too many MFAs, people don't really, are we, flooding the market with them? But the fact that a college course was really your gateway.
yeah.
Really speaks very highly of academic pursuit as a way of creating a writer, a voice.
Totally. I mean, like, it's so important. And it was just like something that like my playwriting professor just kind of like said off, it wasn't even like a big moment where she was sitting me down to tell me, you are the next,
Right.
Lorraine Hansberry. Like, it was not that.
Oh my God.
She was really just like, I think you're pretty good. You should think about it. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it was very simple. But there's power. I mean, there's power in that. There's power in someone being able to kind of like say, I think you should think about something. And if that person goes off and actually does, like, look at what that unlocked my whole, career as a writer. Like, I would,
It's wonderful.
if she had not said that, I don't know. I maybe just be, I would just be sitting here trying to be an actor still. I don't know.
Or maybe Brandon would have said, "You should write something."
Maybe.
Yeah. But I just want to make sure we talk about this. You also mentioned that Elizabeth sort of drilled down on comedy. You were. I thought you hinted at. I have not read Jaja's, but I wonder if is the tone shifted in this play. Do you think? Are we talking about a different?
Yeah, actually, can you explain to the listener a little bit about the premise and what the show is about?
Yes, because it is a brand new play, and a lot of people don't know much about it. The tone has not. It's a different, more mature place. I think I'm coming at it from a different, more mature place. It's still very funny, at least according to all of the audiences who've come so far. It's still quite funny, but I think just my approach is there's just something a little slicker that I think I didn't quite have when I was getting my sea legs. Well, Jaja's African Hair Braiding is set in a very hot summer day in 2019, and it is about a group of West African immigrant hair braiders who work at a shop, along with the different customers who frequent the shop every day. And we also have a young girl, Marie, who is the daughter of Jaja, the shop owner. And she's at a real, fork in the road in terms of like where her life is going to go. And it all really, I would say that if like the center of Schoolgirls is, yes, a comedy set in a high school in Ghana, blah, 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 but it's about colorism, I would say that this set piece of like a West African hair braiding shop in Harlem with these different, unique, wonderful, funny, lovely, crazy, insane women, at the heart of it is also an immigration story. And I think when we get into that, I won't spoil anything because I think there is like a really unique turn it makes. But like when we get to the heart of like what it means to be an immigrant, what the face of immigration was, especially during 2019, when we were in the midst of a very unique presidency in our country. There was only one real face to what immigration was. And I think these women, kind of add to that tapestry of who immigrants are, what they come here in search of. And it really shifts the narrative that I think was being kind of jammed down our throats from a very unique individual. So, um, yeah, that is what the play is about. And so I think because that is a really complex, story to tell and share, I think my approach to it had to be, had to have more care. Because now we're even getting into, lightly touching on how my parents, came to this country and what they did to, get their citizenship and all of that. It's a very complex issue, and I wanted to make sure I was um, handling it with very deep care. Um, and especially being a reflection of these women. I mean, the irony is that most of these hair braiders who, listen, I've been going to hair braiding shop all my life. I've had my hair braided since I was like 4 or 5 years old. And this is a place that I frequent many, many times, in all the years I've been alive. And so I know these women, I know these shops. I know what they go through, their labor of just having to braid all day, their hands. There's a character who says like, her mother always told her, if you have skillful hands, they'll always be full of money. And it's like, that is like kind of their like thesis, as they go to work every single day. And the irony is that like, as much as I would even love for them to come and see this show, they likely may not, because they're like, if I don't work, I don't make money. And I don't know that I can be off in time, to come down to 47th Street and see your little Broadway show, So I hope, though, I told my personal hair braiding lady that I'm like, I will take care of your tickets. Just take a night. Don't, work till 6, and
that's
come to
wonderful.
the show. And she said she would take me up on that. So I'm happy about that.
Oh, that's nice.
It would be nice to be there that night.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
It's great to see that too, that attention to these women, because like there's like a whole barbershop series, of movies. Like it's it's like it feels like it's a very female occupation that is often not taken seriously as a kind of subject matter, you know what I mean? But like there's a movie series about barbershops.
Yes, I know. We have barbershops. We had one movie, I think, that was kind of an offshoot of barbershop that was called Beauty Shop. And then kind of outside of that is like Steel Magnolias or something.
Right, that's
like
it.
It's kind of not much, And so and a hair braiding shop is very unique. It's not quite like a beauty shop or even a barber shop. It's you're there for many hours, There's some styles that I got married last year, and the braiding style that I wanted took 7.5 hours, So
you have to be good at conversation in that chair.
Yeah. I mean, yes. And I was also like, it was the week of my wedding. Of course, I was having panic attacks about everything, and so like in that moment, she wasn't just my hair braiding lady. She was also like my therapist, like my, life coach, my mom at one point, my breathing, my breathing instructor. 'Cause I was, it was just so much happening. And she was just like, you have to breathe. It's going to be okay. Everything, she was so many things to me in those 7.5 hours. And I feel like you get a lot of that experience in this play.
And it's important to note, Jocelyn, the moment at which you're talking about a play that centers to some degree on immigration, when it is the hot button issue. It's and talk about a confusing, complicated issue. I mean, New York City right now is going through this, this really difficult period of trying to figure out how to handle this influx of new people.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's people are real. It's really on people's minds.
It
So
is.
the timing is extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, you can never plan those things, right? But I'm happy that our play is like actively in conversation with whatever is a headline, in a newspaper article right now. So it feels good, and it's cathartic as well. I think people come in, expecting one thing and walk out having experienced another, and that's always my goal with any of my plays. So I'm really excited about this one, and that it's going to, premiere on Broadway. It's so
Fabulous.
rare
Right.
that something that happens without having tried it somewhere out of town or off Broadway somewhere. So I'm really grateful to MTC that they took that chance on me.
Well, we are thrilled to be able to talk to you about this, Jocelyn. We're excited for you.
Oh, yes.
And we're really eager to see Jaja's hair braiding salon.
Yeah.
And which will happen soon. So we wish you the best
Thank
with
you.
this, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This
Thank you
was
so
lovely.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, it's I'm really hopeful about the state of the industry when we have people like Jocelyn coming up and meeting an audience. It's not just like you like yelling into the void. Like she's really
Right.
finding an audience, and that is just like really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. 1,000% with that.
Okay, well, that's it for us this week. All of you theater lovers around the world, around the galaxies, listening to us. Join us next time on Marks and Vincentelli for more theater chat. I don't want to say theater talk. I feel like that expression was taken by a sadly defunct TV show, but
Yes.
let's say theater chat and argument about pronunciation, which you will always get with me, so.
Well, thank
For
you
sure.
all for listening to us.
And for now, I'm Elizabeth Vincentelli.
And I'm Peter Marks. You can find us on marksvincentelli.substack.com. I'm on Threads at Peter J. Marks, just the initial J in the middle. And Elizabeth, you are...
I am, I'm also on Threads, which I forget what my handle is. I think it's
Double Diamond...
EV, that's right. I
Double
can't
Diamond
remember.
EV.
You know what? That was my really insane, like, Instagram handle, and I almost never used Instagram, and then I was settled with it. That, of course, is my tribute to my passion for skiing. And I'm still on Twitter, I've got to say, at E. Vincentelli. You have left that platform. You finally, you cut the cord.
Yeah, I understand why people, stay, but I couldn't take it anymore. And I just was so much aggravation. I had I felt like a lot of wonderful connections on there, but the owner just
Yes.
just lost me.
Yeah, no,
So-
I see. We'll see how long just, you know what, this is a plea. Just like, come on, follow me on Threads, because I feel like I'm like screaming into the void. Get me into the three figures. Come on. The low three figures. How hard can it be? Okay, well, for now, to paraphrase Sondheim, we're still here on Substack, and we'll see you around.